Hello, I am the author of Pilipinto. My name is Valerie Elliot Shepard, and I'm happy to share with you how to pronounce all the words that are Indian words in the book. First of all, you heard Pilipinto, so all of those I's are pronounced as if they were E's. The next word is Quechua. Those are the Indians my mother and father first lived with, and that is the first language that I learned. The next word in the book is Quito, and that is the capital city of Ecuador. Again, the UI sound is just like a long E. And the next village that we lived in is Shandia. That is the Quechua word for their little town. After that, you read about Shalmetta, which is where the MAF, or Missionary Aviation Fellowship, planes came from. My mother and father lived a short time in Puyupungu, and that became the settlement where Ed and Mary Lou McCulley worked with the Quechua Indians. The word for the people that we lived with who killed my father and Ed McCulley and the other three men, Pete Fleming, Nate Saint, and Roger Udarian, their word used to be Auca, but it is now the Waorani. They do not want to be called Auca because it means savage. So Waorani just means the people, and you can call them the Wow for short. The settlement where the Waorani lived was called Tiwanu, and that is where we moved when I was 3.5. Here are two Quechua words that I heard a lot as I started talking from the age of babyhood until I was 3.5. One was shami, which meant come. Any adult or any child could say that to us, shami, and it meant come. And the other Quechua word is atzai atzai. They used it twice if they were slightly embarrassed or ashamed or weren't sure where to look after something was said. That simply meant, I don't know what to say. So, atzai, atzai. One of the humorous words that the Waorani said when they were amused by somebody saying something they were surprised at or really didn't believe, they would say, akan. And they often used that phrase when they heard my mother say something in their language which didn't quite get pronounced right. So they would laugh and say, ka. There were two things that the Quechuas and the Waorani made. Shigras is a net bag with a band over the forehead and the bag hanging in the back. And they made those in all different sizes. For little ones, for little kids to carry, and big ones for bigger people to carry bigger loads. One time, a Waorani woman brought back a wild pig inside a huge shigra. And the other word was chicha. Now, both Quechuas and Waorani made this drink, chicha. It was made out of chewed up manioc. Manioc was their staple food, like we have potatoes or bread. And it was a big, long root vegetable. You can find them in a lot of grocery stores with a brown skin. They had to peel off the skin, and then they had to chop it up and boil it. After they boiled it, the women would chew up those pieces of manioc and spit them into a bowl if they were going to drink it immediately and add water to it. Or they'd spit it into a green leaf that they could wrap up like a package. And they would save it for a day or two, and the longer it sat, the more sour it became. We drank chicha almost every day whenever we visited with the Indians. And it did have a little sour taste sometimes, or if it was fresh, it didn't, but a very plain taste. Nothing very exciting, and that was the only drink that they had. And it kept them going sometimes for a whole day of walking through the jungle. Here are some names of some important people in the story. My mother's name, given to her by the Waorani, was Gikari. And Gikari means woodpecker, because I think they called her that because her nose was so pointed. Now, Mintaka and Mankamu were the two women who came out having fled their village because of the violence, but they came and lived with some Quichuas, and then my mother invited them to come and live with us, and that's how she began to learn the Waorani language, the first two Wao women that we met. Fermin is the Quichua man who was very kind to my mother, carried me on his back in a wooden chair all the way to Tiwanu, which was that 3-day journey described in the book. Venancio is the Quichua man who taught the boys and the men everything that my father had taught him, both how to read as well as what it says in the Bible about Jesus. In Waorani language, the names for my two friends that I spent the most time with were Taimanta and Bai. They were the two little kids that I loved playing with, especially Taimanta, because he seemed sort of ignored by the rest of the children, and I felt sorry for him, so I played with him a lot. And then there was Dayuma, who was a Wao woman who had also come out from their tribe because of violence a few years before these other two women had come out. And she's the one who taught my father some Waorani phrases that the men could shout out of the plane through a megaphone. She also helped to teach the Wao people the Bible when my mother and Rachel Saint were still learning the language. And the last name is Gikita. He was Mankamu's husband. He befriended us, and he was very helpful to my mother in repeating Waorani words. When the rest of them wouldn't understand why she would want a repeated word, they would just laugh at her, but Gikita understood she was trying to learn that word, so he would repeat for her. Well, I hope you've had fun learning these names and all these words, and now you can say them too. God bless you.